living around like locked doors all the
Yeah.
time and
Yeah, absolutely. And that's
set routine of what you've got to do.
absolutely. And I think that's important. Is to think of yourself in that situation. Now, what happened then in the early 1990s, which is when I qualified, they started shutting down all these old wards and moving people into care homes in the community. Now, best thing they could have ever done, as far as I'm concerned, and moving people into small houses that you wouldn't know was a place for someone with learning disabilities to live. You just walk past it, you just think that was a house, and that's how it should be. There shouldn't be a sign outside, it should just be somebody's house, it's their home. But what you've got to think about is that behaviour which was manageable within a hospital, then transplanted into a community setting, then becomes much more challenging. So again, a change of environment changes how challenging that behaviour is. And that's not the behaviour that's changed, the behaviour is the same. So this guy, when he moved out, walking down the street and he saw a child with a drink, he'd just grab that off the child and drink it. Do you know what I mean? So that becomes very much more challenging. On the ward, he couldn't do that because the people who had the drink were the people who were stronger and the people who were more likely to fight back. Jazz, did you want to ask something?
When they do move, like you know the Forward Institute, that happened to them, isn't it? They all moved into their own houses.
Yeah.
But I think that they change their behaviour because it's like they've got freedom. But in a way that's good because they do need their own freedom, and some people do thrive on that, whereas some people will be like,
absolutely.
Like, not to do all that freedom, but because they've been in the institute for that long, I think that's why they do it. It's really sad.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Jess. That is it, and that's what's called institutionalisation. The fact that people have learnt a set of very strange rules, and when they go out into the community, often it can be quite difficult because people have to learn new rules. Difficult for them, I mean. It can be quite difficult.
They can be faced with those sorts
That's
of
right.
things, like children and stuff.
That's right. And our role, and my role as a care worker, when I was working, because the people that I was working with had only recently moved out of long-term institutional care. My role as care worker was to help them to understand the new rules under which they live. All right, without imposing my own rules.
Like a care home would still sort of, to a certain extent, has still got the locked doors and stuff. I don't think you're ever really doing
The care setting that I worked in, we didn't have locked doors in the same way. Because although the people that we worked with were very vulnerable, we just made sure that we were staffed enough to the point where if somebody wanted to go out, we'd just say, that's fine, let's go. And we'd go out with them. Now, we would go with them, but the view to that, and didn't happen while I was there, the view to that was actually to support them to then become independent in going out and doing what they wanted to do. Right? So we didn't have locked doors in the same way. So,
but those old people have still got locked doors
yes,
now.
Now the thing I want you to think about with that is, let's say, the argument that people would say with that. So if you didn't hear what Autumn had asked, Autumn said, well, care homes for older people still have locked doors for people with, and we're talking about people in confused states like Alzheimer's and those sorts of disorders, aren't we? That's really the. And if you think about that, if you think, okay, let's take it to the extreme, and because the reason for that is, and if you ask them, as you said, they would say it's for the client's safety. If you take it to the ultimate extreme, if you had a member of staff for every client, would you need to have a locked door? No. Okay. So it's not necessarily about their safety, maybe about their safety, but it's about their safety compared to how many staff you can provide. You see what I mean? So it's more about, it's a bit of both. It's not only is it about safety, it's about staffing numbers and how much people can afford to staff a unit. Now, I'm not saying that that's changeable. I'm not saying that a care home for older people can provide a member of staff for everybody, but you have to look at the root cause of it. It's not necessarily about their behaviour. It's about how many people you can provide to actually support people. Do you see what I mean?
And then it's also about having like a lock system so that people just can't wander in. That is also like.
No, that's true, and that's a different issue. That's a different issue.
That is the same kind of thing, really, isn't it? The door's locked. No, it's
Yeah.
not the same thing, but the door is locked for that reason and for that reason.
It is for that reason, but there's no reason why you need to lock it from the inside. I can see how you might need to lock it from the outside to stop people from getting in. There's no reason why you need to lock it from the inside. So you can, so people can get out when they want to.
I suppose, yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that this is an easy answer. It's not an easy answer to any of these things. It's just not the right question. Do you know what I mean? You need to find out what the question is that, in order to see what the answer might be. One of the points about environments is power. Remember what I said about those kind of bizarre situations where, food became an expression of power. The powerful people were the people that could eat fast, and they became stronger. And so those people who couldn't eat fast then became disempowered, and often would express themselves in violent forms because that was the only way to express themselves and say that I have power in my own life. I can make decisions. If you ask me to do something and I don't want to do it, I might lash out. To be honest, in those situations, they probably still have ended up doing it. I remember talking to, and this is old, you know what I mean? This is not in my working life, but talking to a guy who said that when he started, this was a fairly elderly guy who'd worked with people with learning disabilities, because in the 50s people were much more locked away. And he said that one of the treatments for challenging behaviour was what they called the black capsule. Right? So if anybody would kick up a fuss and create a problem or get violent or whatever, they'd be given the black capsule. Think about back then there was a uniform which was very similar to a prison officer's uniform with black shiny boots. Alright, and the black capsule was the end of your boot. Alright, so what we're talking about actually is a continuum of how people have been treated with learning disabilities, of that sort of oppression all the way through, and often how people will kick back from that is how they've learned is violence. Right, so often people will learn violent ways of dealing with situations.